Hello, hello, and welcome to the Humanity of Sales, where purpose meets profit. I'm your host, Heather Hansen O'Neill, and this is where we explore how business success can really interact and play hand in hand with that human impact. That's the focus here. And we talk to amazing guests to get their insight, their experience, their wisdom, and suggestions for you. Now, one of the questions that I find myself thinking lately and kind of asking is what separates a leader that people follow because they have to from a leader that people follow because they want to? And I think the answer may lie in something that we're going to call today enlightened leadership. Now, I know, whenever I use the E words, enlightened energy or anything like that, people are like, oh, Heather's getting foo-foo on me. No, don't go anywhere. Seriously. Actually, what I did with this one is I went and I looked back at the definitions of enlightened, right? And so I wrote them down for you here so you can take a look. Having or showing a rational, modern, and well-informed outlook. As an example, the more enlightened employers offer better terms. Maybe not where you thought it would have started. Then a few more include freed from ignorance and misinformation. Ooh, I like that one. Here's another one. Factually well informed, tolerant of alternative opinions, and guided by rational thought. That's a good one to give spiritual or intellectual insight to. And lastly, characterized by full comprehension of the problem involved. Not as fluffy as you thought, is it? No, it's not. Enlightened leadership ties in to humanity. And just as I often have to remind people that humanity in business, in leadership, in sales is not fluffy, it actually directly contributes to the bottom line. This enlightened leadership is one of the strategies, the tools on how you can infuse it into the leader, therefore infusing that into the humanity, the culture of humanity in an organization. So yes, I'm excited about it. I'm also excited about the fact that the person, the guest, the expert that we have on the show today is a friend of mine. I've known him for years. I actually had him as well on my From Fear to Fire podcast. He wrote one of the chapters in my Finding Humanity book. He's just an all-around great guy, superhuman. His name is Dean Fisher. So Dean, he left a 30-year career in Las Vegas to find a new place in the world's events industry. So he's an avid traveler. He loves to golf with his family. He is passionate about speaking on personal growth that's aimed at enhancing the hospitality industry's collective strength on his podcast, Leadership Enlightenment, and in his recently published book, The Power of Enlightened Leadership, the journey of 10,000 hours. I can't wait to introduce him to you. And here he is, Dean Fisher. Dean, I'm so excited to have you on the show today. How are you?
My dear friend, we've done this a couple times, but today is going to be a special conversation. I'm so excited. I just saying, I think this is the kickoff to say the summer's officially over for me and we're back in it.
Oh, we are so back in it, right?
I
I
don't know if I ever
always
got
love.
out of it.
I know, right? I know. That's a good point too. This has been a summer where I thought it was going to be a little slow, so I planned all this travel, and then business got wonderfully busy. So we're doing the juggle. We're doing
I
the
felt the
juggle,
same way. I really
right?
felt the same way. It's almost like everybody was kind of pumping the brakes at the beginning of the year,
Yeah.
and we've all realized like we're going to do this, and now it's coming out.
I love it. But like I said, I always love a conversation with you. You are amazing. Audience, you are just absolutely going to love Dean. He always has something fascinating to say. Before I dive into any questions about our actual topic, um, I want to ask you, you and I have had some pretty deep conversations about humanity as it relates to business and sales and leadership. Dean actually also wrote a section in the book, The Humanity, Finding Humanity. And I am so excited to have him on here to explain to you, listeners, what his thoughts are on the role that humanity plays. So, what do you think, Dean?
I spent a lot of years in what I call my 9 to 11 o'clock at night job. And it was a very driven style of time for me. I wasn't able to look around myself enough to understand what was really happening. I just was driven to earn income and raise my family. When I had a chance to step out and end up in the entrepreneurial world like I am, there's a lot of things that I was able to analyze in the first couple of years because I felt my corporate mindset was kind of coming into this, and I was really a point-to-point sales type person. And I had taken the humanity out of sales. I really wasn't considering the people. I was considering the product and the outcome.
Mm,
When I started rolling what I would call referral marketing into my life and establishing relationships with people that were promoter relationships where I wanted to see that person do well and they wanted to see me do well, I found that humanity was a driving energy that was part of my daily practice. And it really is my mantra on a regular basis.
it is. And sometimes people talk about it. But one of the things that I absolutely love about my friend Dean is that he activates it. He walks the talk. So, just quickly, can you think of a story of how you have um, either experienced as a humanity on the receiving end, or how you have used it within your business to great success?
Yeah. I find, in kind of a wide spectrum, my humanity is there for the relationships with my clients. I understand that they have stresses on their side. I'm a broker by day trade, I'll say. That's my day job, is I help my clients find their best meeting spaces and contract and source for them. And a lot of times the executive role of them getting this deal signed is very stressful because the executive doesn't have the time necessarily to invest into it the way they've put their efforts into it. And coming from being an executive myself, I understand that. So a lot of times I'll coach my friends, my clients on this idea of timing so that we can find a flow as we're going through this, anticipating what their leadership may be doing to them in the future instead of just letting it hit us right between the eyes. I mean, I'm currently working on a deal right now where the dates have shifted a couple here and there, and the bosses are included, and my client is super stressed because she knows she has to. So my humanity really and compassion is built into having her, letting her understand I'm there for her. I'm not something that she needs to worry about as far as how emotionally I feel about this. I've disconnected from that, and I'm a support factor for her. On the other side of that, I tell you, lately, I put this book out. I know you're going to talk about it later, but I have gotten some amazing calls from friends that have given me inspiration for the idea of the efforts I put forward just by the experiment coming to fruition. And look at this and where we're at. I find that these individuals in my work life, the idea of being an entrepreneur, are really what drive me on a daily basis, is knowing I have individuals out there all working just as hard trying to create their lives. And it seems to bring this synergy to me on a daily. Yeah, it's really cool.
Mm. Yeah, it's really interesting. The energy just really expands. And you mentioned this, the how you're there for your clients. And I just
Yeah.
want to add, as someone who has experienced you and what you're talking about here, is that you always come from this place of how can I serve? How can I give? And ultimately, that comes back with from to people who are like, wow, I want to support you. I want to support your book. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So that's how it works. It's reciprocal. But before we go off of the concept of, you mentioned point-to-point sales versus referral marketing, and I know that you went through that process of evolving. But for any of our listeners right now who are in that, yeah, you know what, maybe I need to evolve into the next level. Do you have any suggestions for them?
Yes, yes. Build your market. Social media right now, your following or your collaborative market that you're in is going to be your strongest value moving forward into life, no matter what you do. I mean, just keep building, keep connecting.
That is fantastic. And you know what? Does that lead into for you the momentum that it builds for like sales growth? I know you talk about
Yeah.
that too. Does that tie
Yeah.
together there?
It does. I mean, marketing and sales are two different things, but they're involved in the same mindset. And marketing has a lot to do with your branding and how people perceive you. I personally believe we're in an era where the cold call is out the window. Nobody's calling each other anymore. It's just not evolved. And I think it's a responsibility of the individual to present themselves so that others can learn about them before they meet. And that's
Hmm.
hence the podcast, LinkedIn, posting, things of this nature. And when you invest into that energy and realize like it's your responsibility, you see it like a building without walls. It's the same actions that you did when you went into work every day. You're really saying hi in social media when you're liking a post. And when you leave a comment, it's like you sat down and you gave that person a flower in their office or a piece of candy. It
Yes.
doesn't mean the world is going to move forward for you because you did this, but it's an interaction, it's a social connection. And I love looking at life like an experiment. And I constantly analyze this idea of how I built relationships when I was working in buildings versus how I build relationships now outside of buildings. And they're very similar. It doesn't change much. It's just about the actions of how you involve yourself in your day and how you touch the people around you. And you can do the same thing through social media very easily. And it grows around you. It stays with you.
It does. And you know, I just got a referral from someone that was so beautiful. It was like a warm referral. And I'm thinking about it now because you and I both do that. And
Yeah.
you are especially good at it, where you will make a warm connection through an email or LinkedIn stating why you appreciate each of the separate people and how they might be able to connect. And that's
Yeah.
going that extra mile. And I think
Yeah.
that's very special about you and about what you do and how that ties into what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, that's purposeful. I mean, truthfully, when I decided to stop selling every day and start building relationships, I realized I had to release this idea that I needed something from it.
Hmm.
And once I started practicing, because everything's a practice, nothing do you get just because you have an idea. I had to develop a way to have a conversation with somebody that I could release myself out of the conversation and enjoy what I was learning from them. And once I was able to do that, I started finding that I was creating these connections, these bonds. And I'll use the word reciprocal because it has a lot to do with it. But when you create a reciprocal relationship with somebody where you really honestly, authentically are their friend,
Yep.
they in turn reciprocate in the same idea.
Yeah.
And this is all energy transfer, positive pluses and minus, yin and yangs. And once you start to realize like it's both sides of it, your sales profile starts to strengthen. It's not just a landslide of business heading towards you. It's
Hmm.
you finding a way also to solve their problems. And in the beginning, I had no idea what that meant, solve people's problems.
Yeah.
But like you said, when I'm having this conversation with somebody, I'll hear this little whisper, introduce them to Todd, introduce them to Amy, and I'll just write it down as I'm talking to them. And then at the end, I'll say, listen, I have this friend Amy and this friend Todd that I think that you might have a great connection with.
Yeah.
I'm going to step out and just introduce you on LinkedIn. You know, the funniest thing about this is the stuff that happens around it is even more glorious than the connections you get. There's these two individuals that I connected once. I love this story. One is a professional baseball player who's retired and helping children and growing and writing books, and the other is a professional singer that's coming out of the events industry. They're both public speakers, so I connected them. They became friends. And what do you know? The individual that has the connections through professional baseball was able to swing a way to get her into a stadium to sing the national anthem that was her life's dream.
Oh,
Are you kidding me?
that's
These people didn't
amazing.
even know each other before.
Right.
Think, and it has
Wow.
nothing to do with business. We're not trading business in this
Mm-mm.
relationship. But I'll tell you what, I see it like the coins are going to the etherical bank over here, and they pop out over here,
Yeah.
and the referrals come through with another relationship or another thing. And I think to myself, wow, that where did that come from? And in the beginning, I realized like, oh, that came from efforts you had put forth
Yes.
that
Yes.
you didn't have expectations from. And now it's like this curious game that's playing around me. Like, how can I invest myself into humans as much as possible without needing anything? And then watch the universe invest into me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like what you said because I now am finally listening every time. And that is it's kind of like a prompting. You said, and I don't know why, but the idea came to mind that I should introduce them to Amy, and so I'm writing it down. Sometimes I don't know why I'm
Yeah,
making an
I never do.
introduction, but if that's the case, it's just I'm prompted to do it. It always results in something awesome. And I know you do the same thing. But
Yeah.
I want to get to your book. Now, I alluded in
Cool.
the very beginning to the fact that sometimes when we talk, we started to dip our toes into energy and the word enlightened. Sometimes people are like, oh, that's, it's a little too fluffy for me. So not. So related directly to business, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I want to have you explain a little bit more about your new book, The Power of Enlightened Leadership, which is so good.
It's so
So,
fun.
and you have the journey of 10,000 hours. So
Yeah.
just give a little bit about the book, but then also what prompted you, since we're talking
Yeah,
about
sure.
prompts, to make it happen.
Okay, so I've been waiting for this. I have to say this in front of everybody. It's your fault. You did
Oh, what
it.
did I do
I
now?
mean, it's Heather's fault. Guys, Heather and I have had these conversations for years. We started when we were in the pandemic, and she brought me along through those first couple of years where I was looking to find peers and mentors that I could align with. And Heather always brought me into an alignment where I felt like a professional and what I was doing was worth it. And one time I'm sharing with her, and she said, Dean, you need to write a book and get this all down on paper. And I said, oh, Heather, I'm going to do that later on in life when I'm retired. And she says to me, that is so sad. And I go, what? And she goes, that you wouldn't share it with people now. People want to hear what you are doing now, not what you did when you accomplished them. And that inspired me to find my strength to write the book. Now, where did the book come from? This is the fun part. In my corporate years, I had this philosophy that I was climbing this ladder, like everybody does. And I got to the top. I was the executive from the waiter. And I realized when I was at the top, I was so unhappy because there was a lot of things I had left on the table along the way when I was driving through this mission of 20 years to get to this place.
Mhm.
And not that I was sad about it. I just was curious, like, how did this happen? How am I in this place and I'm not happy? And I realized I'd never gone inside. I never really looked at the strategies of who I was. I was a very ego manifesting type person. Everything around me had to be tangible. I had to hold it, but I was able to create. I had gone through this and I knew that there was effort that was relating to outcome, but it was slow. And I thought to myself, wow, man, if you learned about what energies you could use within you, could you become stronger? And what an experiment that could be. And so I dived in. One night I'm at the gym and I'm listening usually to useless music or watching news, and I'm getting frustrated and I'm trying to work off stress of the day. And I'm spending 2 hours basically getting more anxious. And I started listening to podcasts. This is way back in the day before anybody knew what that was. And I'm like, podcast. So I'm listening, and this guy says, do you realize if you invest 10,000 hours into something, you could be an expert? And I said to myself, like, wow, what could I invest into that I could consider myself an expert? Because honestly, I didn't see myself that way back then. I
Mhm.
didn't see my light. I didn't see my strength. I was constantly struggling in the way it felt to me, but I was achieving. And so, you're stuck in this kind of a mindset. And so I started. I decided that I was going to invest in myself. I was going to figure out what these bugs in my head were about. And I was going to spend 10,000 hours and I was going to read all the books that I could read and all the information I could to start. And I started this journey and it started getting crazy down this rabbit hole. And I learned all this stuff about myself and realized like this journey really wasn't about me anymore. It was about understanding this thing so that I could show others and help them mirror into them what this experience was about. And my experiment landed into this analogy that I realized I was more living in the rings of a tree. I wasn't living on this ladder. I was always where I needed to be. I was expanding, and sometimes it's uncomfortable, but I didn't need to get anywhere that I didn't understand. I was already there, and that gave me this strength to start to really find my center around that. And that's where the journaling happened. I started journaling and taking notes and going through the process. Well, here you are 7 years later, and I have this pathway that I could see in my head that I had moved through. And I wanted to document it because when I went out looking for resource, I couldn't find anything that really showed me the pathway of somebody's life except for Dr. Wayne Dyer. He wrote a bunch of books from beginning to end, and you could see his translation from ego into spiritual mindset. And by the end, I realized, like, oh, there's something there. And I said to myself, I need to sacrifice. I need to find the biggest sacrifice I can make to see if this works, what this experiment would be, to throw myself into this. What could that be? And I said, I could leave my 30-year career and start over again in something else. That could be the scariest thing I could imagine. And I could jump in that fear and I could learn from it. And that became the catalyst of the adventure in the book. I'm not going to spoil the book for everyone, but when I got done with the book, I realized it wasn't an adventure of being enlightened. It was the adventure of realizing light was within me. And that my strength as a leader over the years has always been my ability to have compassion with my team, to help them grow, and to infuse light into the group setting. Now, we could see that enlightened leadership mindset as a foo-foo woo-woo thing, but really what it comes down to is this idea that I believe a CEO is an individual that did the work on themselves enough to have something in their cup to give others.
Mhm.
That's the difference you find between management and leadership, is that the person that really truly inspires you as a leader is the person that's already done the work on themselves enough to have time to give to others. And that became the pinnacle of the understanding of what enlightened leadership is. I had gone through 30 years of managing and leading teams and never worked on myself. What kind of a leader could I have been if I had actually put this time in before that? And that's what led me to share this message. And truly, it's a message to myself 20 years ago that you can do it, Get out there and do it. And the experiment itself finishes in the idea of the book actually being written. So those of you out there that believe that you're afraid or you can't see this last step of mine, this last one I've just made, as another fear challenge. Dino's putting his life out in a book. This is the most horrifying thing anybody could imagine. But you know what? I have found that I invest in a life and life invests into me, and my life has magnanimously grown just from the sake of releasing it 2 weeks ago. I can feel the energy around me. It's absolutely amazing.
But the cool thing is, yes, that light that I love the adventure. You know, I'm all about adventure, right? Right. So I
Yeah.
love hearing about it as an adventure and that light and that process that you went through to find and uncover and share that light is so powerful with this book to be able to have other people who read it be able to uncover the shroud that's holding their light back, right? So it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the like a massive ripple effect of
Yeah.
light, right? Like a
Yes.
prism, like a prism.
Yeah.
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 And I'm the one who mentioned, oh, it's foo-foo. It's because I know it's not, right? And when
Yeah.
you look up I mentioned in the beginning about the definitions, it's things like let me see here, find here one characterized by full comprehension of the problem involved. Does that sound foo-foo? No, that sounds like pure, powerful leadership, right?
Yeah.
Having or showing a rational, modern, and well-informed outlook. This is enlightenment.
Yes. I tell you, one of the biggest steps that most people don't realize that I consider enlightenment is the ability to step back and observe yourself.
Yes.
This is very difficult for humans to even allow themselves to do in natural settings. But when you can take the humility to observe yourself in every setting, you'll find that there's things you're doing that you're not aware of that are causing these frictions.
Hmm.
It's almost like your bloodstream lives on the outside of your body, and you're out there like Freddy Krueger, cutting it all up, and you don't even understand that. But if you realize like that flow of energy in you also lives outside and around you, that team and energy and anxiety that you work in may be causing you to feel this way. And if you were able to settle the anxiety and find some flow and structure within the team, even if there was a project you were all working towards, the idea is that collectively, the project's value is the reason why you're moving there, not because you want them to or the boss wants to see the outcome. And when we can release outside of those two factors and realize like you have humans working around you trying to do something
Yeah.
that they're proud of, the leader's job is to recognize that. And
Mhm.
if you're thanking them every day for useless things, then your thank you never means anything later. And if you're not coaching them into their strengths and their fears, you're not challenging them. And I've had amazing mentors in my life that showed me that about myself and broke those things. And I feel that's the responsibility of leadership is to be there to help others grow through those steps as well.
It really is. And you just tied together that enlightenment and humanity for the
Yeah.
humanity of sales where purpose meets profit. It is
Yeah.
so aligned. because you said we're working with humans, right? And you're talking about how this enlightened leadership enables us to stay in flow and
Yeah.
flow through the challenges and to lift
Yes.
like the tide comes in to lift those around us. That is our responsibility.
Yeah. And in hard facts, I just heard Simon Sinek give this great example the other day of an employee in Las Vegas that worked at two different hotels. One hotel was the Four Seasons. He was an espresso or a coffee connoisseur. And then another hotel, same job, but bigger setting. One hotel, the person didn't feel valued and did nothing, just showed up every day, poured the coffees and left. The other one felt valued. He engaged with the guest every day. He had fun and enjoyed the conversations. And this is like, I love to joke about this overall, right? Like, I wish the spreadsheet wasn't a bottom line. I wish it was a big circle. I
Mm,
wish we realized like it has outputs coming all over it. Back in the day, I would be able to nail a forecast 18 months out, and the accounting finance team would ask me how I did it, and it would drive me crazy. Like, that's your job, guys. You should be able to do this. But the truth is, I was using energy work. I set a goal and a number, and the team and I worked towards it. And the closer we got to it, the more excited we got about it. And we would find solutions to hit the number. Where if we didn't have a number, or a goal that we were setting, we didn't know what we were trying to come into. It was just like somewhere around this number and that number. And this is a life example. This is an understanding that once you establish these things, you don't have to see the clearest picture. You just have to hit a point and start working towards it.
right. Right. And I love how you're feeding off of each other energetically. It's not just you anymore, right? It's
Nope.
never actually been just about you. And by you, I don't
No.
mean you, Dean. You know
Oh, I
that I
know.
mean you, yeah, everyone.
Yeah.
That it's always about how we work together to
It had,
increase that energy and
yeah.
achieve not just the goals, but a bigger contribution than we had even set forth, right? In
Yeah.
that point.
Yeah.
It always ends up being bigger when we work that way.
Well, if somebody wants a real quick way to see what you're talking about, go
Hmm.
watch the show Ted Lasso. It'll show you exactly what you're saying. I realized after watching Ted Lasso that I am not a coach. I was Rebecca, the owner of the team when I was in my corporate world. And I wanted to be the coach so bad, but I wasn't evolved enough to be the coach. I didn't have anything to give back. I was more concerned with my leadership's view of what we were doing than
Hmm.
I was of my team's opinion of what their growth and their margins were. And that difference is the night and day that you and I are talking about, from managing a situation to leading a situation.
So as we're heading off of this, if someone right now is sitting there listening to this thinking, "Oh, where am I actually? Am I where I want to be, who I want to be?" If they're having some of those thoughts right now, other than the obvious, go read Dean's book, what would be a suggestion that you have for listeners right now that people can walk away and think about differently or do differently?
I'd say take a 30-day challenge.
Mm,
Take a 30-day challenge of observing yourself. Step back. Realize like you can walk into work every day and you could do the same things you did the day before, but now you can be the observer and you can take in consideration what you are doing. You can sit down with your team and you could interview them and ask them after a meeting, how did they observe the meeting? That was one of my biggest steps for myself, is I would have a counseling session with somebody, or I would have an inspiring session, we'll say, with somebody. And then after the session, when the meeting was over, I would say, okay, now we're going to have another meeting different. Now you're the boss and I'm the employee. How did you just take that interaction? And they would, what do you mean? I'm like, how did that come across? And they said, it very clear. I understood what I'm doing, and I know where to go. And then I would realize like, okay, I didn't get mucky in that. They got the message. If I didn't hear back what I expected, I realized like, oh, I didn't clearly define the message. And like you said, self-promotion about the book, but there's some tools in the book, like understanding the laws of human nature, that allow you to pick up on these things, or maybe the theory of the sea animals that I put in there. They'll allow you to pick up on these little hints, and you'll be able to see yourself within this light and kind of raise above and observe what is happening around you right now. How do those people react? Are they really responding to the person that's in front of them? Are they responding to the representative that's holding the job? And these things are really critical because behind your conversation are the real conversations, and you need to manage those. The ones that you're not there for. And that's the residual effect of your management and your leadership. And so I say take a self-reflection and be honest with yourself. One of my big steps when I got my biggest promotion in the corporate world, I was working around peer sets that were smarter than me. I realized that. And it was the first time in my life I had to deal with people that actually were more intelligent than I was. But they had a feeling that I couldn't get people to move in a direction they couldn't because I had the ability to communicate with them and they had. What we found was is that everybody has a talent in that situation, and for them all to come together is where the strength goes. My job was to be the best I could be at who I was and not any longer emulate all these people around me in competition. And so release yourself from the competition factor. Take an idea and look at yourself from how you're approaching it and reset what you see that is working and adjust those things that you see that are not working. And you'll find that you'll be able to be your own best mentor when you're able to look at yourself from those perspectives.
And it's incredibly transformational. The way that not just how you show up and how you impact other people, but also how you feel on a daily basis. And
Hmm.
I recently have been finding that there's the disconnect right now. How people are feeling heaviness. And so that
Hmm.
gets lifted. You mentioned the words, release and flow and that requires that heaviness to get lifted. And what you're talking
Yeah.
about now are specific tools to be able to do that. Listeners, we will put the link to reach Dean and to find the book. The Power of Enlightened Leadership in our show description for you. So as we head off, Dean, like what's next for you? What is your next intention for moving
I love
forward
that.
with humanity or moving forward in that state of enlightened leadership?
Yeah, I don't know if I have the exact words aligned to answer that question the right way because it's kind of in process, but I'll tell you, I've really released myself into needing to control my life, and I really just want to be there and show up every day for it. We've had some conversation around the edges. My mother lives with me now and my wife, and we're caregivers for her in dementia. And I believe there's another book coming out of that and the idea of what it feels like to be the caregiver and how to adjust to that because it's not a very easy process. And I've been going through it for like the last 9 months and I enjoy it. The crazy part is like people say, "What are you going to write another?" So insane that you didn't want to write books and now you want to write a book. And for everybody out there, when you fear challenge yourself, what you realize is like there's these steps that you learn. So I learned there's about 350 steps in writing a book and editing it. Now that I know them, I'm very confident to do again. I'm just going to give myself the time frame, the whole 2 years, and I enjoy it as a passion project where I replace time that's being uselessly observe. So when I'm watching TV at night, I'm writing the book at the same time. Is kind of how I do it. And
Mhm.
it really makes me feel good that I'm investing that energy in a place that's for the community. So to answer your question in a big way, I want to continue investing myself into the collective community. I would love to do some stage work. I found that I really like to kick off shows. I have this ability to kind of bring the audience up and get them to this place of mindset and then hand it off to the show people again and enjoy the show myself.
Mhm.
I love my day job, so I'm obviously embracing, new clients, more clients, growing that business of brokering and contracting. But ultimately, I want to just maintain a flow within all these lanes that I've opened up and allow them to continue to grow on their own. And I have this philosophy that I used to work and control 80% and allow 20% to happen. Now I work and control 20% and allow 80% to happen. And I just enjoy that real excitement of the day and the curiosity of what could happen and how could that conversation go. It's
Oh my
amazing.
gosh. It's fantastic. Dean, you're so inspiring. You're inspiring me. I'm sure all of our listeners right now are thoroughly inspired. So I encourage you, listeners, to reach out to Dean Fisher. Like I said, we'll put the link to his book in the show description for you. If you enjoyed the show, please share it out. Spread the love, the humanity, the enlightened leadership out with others that you think would benefit from this as well. You'll increase that flow, that energy, that light, and this is where we like to live. Dean, thank you for bringing it. You and your energy. Thank you.
You're so welcome. And my heart and your heart are connected. They always have been and always will be. Thank you, Heather. You're the best.
You are too. Take care. Bye-bye, everyone. Till next time.